I hope you brought your walking shoes because we've got a lot of ground to cover. To 4 schools that have special guest principals, to the home of an APS graduate who was also the first black doctor at Grady Hospital, and to meet the descendants of Frederick Douglass at a briefing about the continued legacy of human trafficking. Let's get started. APS Today starts now. Our next story is truly amazing. The descendants of Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass explain why they're still working to free 27 million slaves around the world.
My name is Kenneth B. Morris Jr., and I am the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglass, and I'm also the great-great-grandson of Booker T. Washington.
It was fitting that students at both Washington and Douglass high schools receive visits from the president of the Frederick Douglass Family Foundation.
I'm going to show you some pictures. I'm going to tell you some family stories about Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington that you've probably never heard before. And if you guys are ready to get into it right now? Yeah. All right, here we go. Now I always get the question, how is it that you're related to both Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington when they weren't related to each other?
It was the union of Nettie Hancock Washington and Frederick Douglass III that brought these two families together.
Now, we all see these pictures of Frederick Douglass, you know, these stern pictures, serious pictures, but what I want to tell you today is that he was a great father. He was a great family man. He was fun-loving, and he had a great sense of humor, and he loved his grandchildren. And in fact, he used to get down on all fours and let his grandchildren get on his back, and he would give horseback rides. And I bet you can't picture, you know, when you see the pictures of him like this, him getting down on his hands and knees and giving horseback rides. But his grandkids would grab onto his hair and use that as the reins.
The man who taught himself to read and write and play the violin used the power of his pen to dismantle slavery in this country. Today, the descendants of Frederick Douglass are fighting to free those who remain enslaved in the U.S. and around the world.
It's not legal anywhere in the world to have slaves today, but yet there are slaves. And the reason that it thrives is because it is underground. And I found that there are an estimated 27 million people living today as slaves, and they're living in conditions as horrific as the slavery that we've been talking about this afternoon. 80% of the 27 million are women, and 50% are children. From Frederick Douglass, we learned that we have a right to be free. And from Booker T. Washington, we learned how to make our way in the world as free citizens. You guys have a responsibility, because you go to a Booker T. Washington school, whether you know it or not, to carry on and perpetuate that legacy. So when people ask you, where did you go to high school, and you say Booker T. Washington, and people may say, I've heard of him, but I don't really know what he did. You guys need to be able to tell him what he did and how important he was to this country. The family asks you to promise us that as well. Thank you all very much. See you soon.
Wow, now that was a powerful way to close the show. You know, I want to thank all of you, Franklin, Whitney, Denzel. You guys really helped hold the show together while I was out there on the road.
No problem.
We want to thank you as well for joining us for another edition of APS Today. I'll be back next month. Bye-bye.